Hi, Eiman. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. My name is Eiman Jahangir. I'm a cardiologist in Nashville, Tennessee, and a avid space enthusiast. I immigrated from Iran when I was a child to Nashville, and growing up, I had always been excited about space, like most kids. But then, kind of, life got the better of me. Went forward to school, medical school, and then when I was about 23, I went to Kennedy Space Center and I realized, hey, maybe I can still do this space thing. So that kind of reignited my love of space, and since then I've been following it very closely. I've applied for and been a finalist for the astronaut candidate position. I've applied every time I could, but I was a finalist twice, so I got this close, um, but didn't make it. And then since then, I just keep doing everything I can to kind of be involved in the space, despite it not being my actual day job. I was there for the Inspiration 4 launch. I got to watch my friend Cyan Proctor blast off to space, which was pretty cool. Um, and I'm always very enthusiastic to see what is happening in this world of space.
Um, Watching Cyan Proctor go off into space on Inspiration 4 was actually the first and only time I've actually seen a launch. So that was really amazing.
I'm sorry I missed you there.
Oh, I was just saying the Inspiration 4 was the only launch I've seen. So
Yes, yeah, it was pretty spectacular.
so did you enter the Inspiration 4 drawing or contest?
I did. You know, when I saw the advertisement Super Bowl weekend, I, like many people, purchased a bunch of or donated a bunch of money to St. Jude in the hopes that I would get selected. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's always been a dream. The other things I've done every time there's an opportunity. So Discovery Channel is doing a show Who Wants to Be an Astronaut. I applied for that. Um, I've talked to Blue Origin about a flight. At this moment, the prices are still kind of out of reach for me. Um, and the one thing I didn't do was, which is what Cyan did, was start a business and put it on the Ship 4 platform, because maybe that was a better way to get that seat.
I Yeah, it really worked out well. I know a lot of people that participated in that contest, and um, I think it gave renewed a lot of hopes in people that they would actually be able to go to space that maybe had been dormant, or they thought at one point it'd be impossible. They kind of got a glimpse of it. Now they're really hungry to go.
Oh yeah, I think it's hopefully a new era where more and more people. Today is actually the Axiom launch, so that's the first all commercial flight to the space station, which is pretty exciting.
It is. I was just going to ask you about that. And you, so honestly, if it was safe and affordable, you would take a trip to space.
Oh yeah, tomorrow.
And
safe is relative. I mean, it's as safe as it's going to be, I guess, right? So I think SpaceX has done a good job with their safety profile, but it is still a dangerous endeavor, even as safe as you can try to make it. But yeah, I would absolutely go in a heartbeat.
well, and even flying, something that we've gone a few years without accidents in commercial aviation. Those still spring up from time to time.
Oh yeah,
Complex business.
very complex.
Do you think that everyday people will get a chance to go to space on a regular basis within our lifetimes?
I mean, I think eventually it may happen. We want to be, it'd be nice to be optimistic and say yes. But I think people in the 70s were probably optimistic and thought that we'd be flying more regularly to space now. I do think if companies like SpaceX keep growing, if Blue Origin makes their low Earth orbit, if they can actually get to orbit, which is their plan with the New Glenn, that'll increase competition, though it's still probably going to be pretty unaffordable. And maybe when we're in our 80s, it'll be cheaper, but I think it's going to be a ways. Maybe our children will have more opportunities.
I know what you mean about people in the 70s probably being more optimistic. I mean, Pan Am, one of the major aircraft carriers at the time, was actually selling tickets to the moon because it was just a matter of time before such a vehicle would be available. And here we are, and we haven't even sent professional astronauts to the moon well, nearly 50 years. 1972 is the last time. So after this year, I can say 50 years and more.
It's pretty wild, because growing up, we wouldn't have thought, it would take this long, or that we would retire the shuttle. I mean, I understand why we did, but I don't think as a child growing up, I really thought of that as a possibility. You would have thought you would make something tangent to it, right? So you have the shuttle system and then maybe something to get to the moon. But the astronauts are training now for helicopter training, vertical ascent and descent. So it's as real as it's been, right? When they're actually training the astronauts to go to the moon, I think that is very exciting. And I think that means we're going to get there. The goal is actually there, and the people at NASA are doing the training and everything they need to do to get there, which is, I think that's fantastic. I don't think I will make it to the moon, because I think that's going to be NASA heavy and astronaut specific heavy. But I think that even that will be exciting to see humans, set foot there again.
Yeah, I mean, that's also the other aspect is this is not our first time that we've tried to go to the moon. We've talked about going to the moon in the 90s, the early, the 2000s. But I think this is the first time that we've actually had a rocket on the launch pad being tested. So I feel this is way more real than those previous attempts.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. I mean, I don't know if you saw the pictures yesterday of the two. You got the SpaceX rocket and the Orion system, both sitting on the pads, the sister pads across from each other. I mean, I don't think that's ever happened, which is pretty amazing.
So when did you find out that we were going back to the moon?
I mean, we've been talking about it since the Bush era. So the plans have been there for a long time. As you know, this Orion system has been plagued with delays and other things. So ever since I applied to be an astronaut in 2000, when was it? 2007. I think it's been on the radar as that's the plan, especially with the retiring of the shuttle system, space shuttle system. So I think ever since in my adulthood, it's kind of, I knew that was going to happen. At least that was the perceived goal by the government.
Did you get to see a shuttle launch?
I never got to see a shuttle launch. That would have been much like you. The Inspiration 4 was my first launch. Hopefully not my last.
I didn't get to see a shuttle launch, but I did get to see a shuttle on the launch pad. I went to Kennedy Space Center in December of 1985.
Very
and
cool.
Challenger was the shuttle on the launch pad. So
that's amazing.
That was something. Well, would it surprise you that most of the people I talk to on the street that are not space enthusiasts like you and I, about only 20% or less of them actually know we're going back to the moon?
I guess not, because when I talk to people, out of all the people I work with, and I work in a big academic center, most people aren't that interested in space. They don't know if launches are happening. They don't know that we had the first all commercial launch last year. They don't know anything about Axiom. And I think most people have no interest in going to space. I think that it's not appealing to them. So it doesn't surprise me that they don't know that. And to some extent, that's probably NASA not doing good PR, because in the 70s, it was tied into the whole Cold War and progressing in a political manner. Whereas now, luckily it's not seen as a political tool, which I think is a good thing. Even now with all of the unrest that's going on in Eastern Europe, the space program is trying to keep it cool and not be so involved in that, which I think is great. So it doesn't surprise me. I think that Americans' energies are diverted. There's a lot going on in media, social media, pandemic, work, life, cost of housing, that space is kind of a remote idea for most people.
Yeah. And I guess from their standpoint, it's really hard to justify spending so much money on things that they feel have no connection to their lives. And do you see like a path to sort of make that connection?
I mean, I think there's inspiration to be had. So when we land on the moon, there's going to be a large group of naysayers. Why are we spending this money? But then there's something that is innately human to want to explore. That is whether it's explore something scientifically, whether it's explore something religiously, or whether it's to explore something physically. So I think that is human nature, and that will inspire people. From a commercial standpoint, if we're mining things that improve life on Earth, if we discover a new metal or some sort of ore, that would be impactful. And then people would say, oh, we have to go get this ore. Granted, that would probably enrich a small group of people, but maybe it would benefit us as a whole if it's something that, improves energy conduction or something we haven't thought of, right? I don't think we're going to find that on the moon, but maybe on asteroids or something like that as we go forward. I mean, we're going to get a sample from Mars. It's going to still be a few years in the future, but the current rover is looking to take core samples and bring it back to Earth. And that's pretty incredible because we've never done that.
Yeah, it's going to be quite the logistics feat. It's not as simple as sending something out without postage and getting it returned to sender. You have to.
Yeah.
To return postage is kind of expensive. Well, whenever you look out 100, 200 years from now, what does humanity look like to you?
Ooh. That is a very good question. And a difficult one to answer, because I think about where we were 100 years or 200 years ago, and we didn't have indoor plumbing, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have automobiles, we didn't have airplanes, we didn't have cell phones or the ability to communicate like this even when I was growing up. So I think we'll continue to see a progression of technology. The world will continue to feel smaller. I imagine that inner Earth travel is going to become shorter. So maybe companies like Virgin Galactic will figure it out to where you can get to a spaceport, go to low Earth orbit, and then land somewhere else in a matter of 30 minutes, what might have taken 12 hours before. That would be pretty incredible. So that's probably going to improve. Humanity as a whole, it's hard to tell. You'd like to think we'd progress and move forward and have less wars and take care of each other and improve world hunger and simple access to healthcare, making sure people have healthy water in a lot of countries that are underserved and under-resourced. But I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced it's going to happen. Particularly, you see things that like what's happening in Ukraine, because if you have individuals in power that have the ability to progress their agenda as opposed to society kind of looking out for each other, then I think we're going to continue to take advantage of each other, unfortunately, which maybe isn't that rosy. But I do think the quality of life is going to improve because our quality of life has improved over the last 200 years. So I suspect that will continue to improve. Hopefully we'll be more educated and understand more things, and maybe that will get us somewhere. Now, the caveat is, I think if at some point we do have interaction with another species, like another alien off-planet species, that would quickly change everything. And I don't know in what way, but I suspect it would, as unite a lot of humans to kind of say, okay, well, we're not Americans, Canadians, Mexicans, Iranians, we are all earthlings, and which is different than whatever the species is. And so maybe that would unite us more. I don't know. We will see.
Hey, it seems like the great curse of identity. We need a them to define us.
Yeah.
So do you think we'll have an actual settlement on Mars and within the next 200 years?
I think so. I think we might have a settlement on Mars in our lifetime. I don't know how old you are, but let's say we have 30 to 40 years and we start going at least once a year now. I think it would be pretty easy to put a habitat down there, because the logistics of sending it, while complicated, are not beyond our scope. Mars is a different story. I don't think we're going to get to Mars in our lifetime unless the technology improves, either speed or radiation shielding, because radiation's the big killer. But moon, I think we could do the moon. I mean, radiation is still an issue, but it's just a much closer destination.
Well, let's imagine we have the most optimistic projections come true. And your great, 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 great granddaughter has grown up on Mars her entire life and is now in high school doing a paper on the 2020s.
Yeah.
What would you like her to put in that paper about this decade that we're living in?
I think that the decade that we are living in, from a space standpoint, is the second space. So hopefully we are now at the beginning of a more inclusive, more open, and more understanding space program, where it's not limited to the fittest and the most rigorous kind of training and selection process, which is what from the 70s till now it has been. Hopefully we'll have more diversity, we'll have more women, we'll have artists. And so from a space program, I hope she looks back in 2020 and says, okay, this is when space truly opened up for everyone. It wasn't just the elite astronauts that traditionally have had the privilege to go to space.
I hope it turns out that way too. And Eiman, thank you so much for your time today. I know we talked about a lot of things. Before we go, is there anything that you wanted to talk about or any questions you had for me?
I mean, I think that it's an exciting time. I feel truly blessed to be living right now and to have the ability to be in this country, and know people that are actually in the field of space and seeing where it goes. I think it's only going to get better over the next 20, 30 years, and maybe we'll have a commercial space station rotating around the Earth that we can all visit. That may be more feasible for you and me than going to the moon, and I'm okay with that. I'd be perfectly content with that option. But I'm glad you're doing this project. I think it's important to record people's kind of interest in space and the moon. And so thank you for taking on this project.
Well, thank you for participating, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.